about 20 minutes to a half an hour to calm her down. And I'm talking to you on the charger. I wanted to apologize because I have not been on since the other day. I moved my son back home. My husband helped. We moved our son back home, as you guys know, as I said in my last live. Saturday, Sunday, we actually spent the day packing and cleaning, and I was exhausted and I'm sore. And then Tuesday, we did the same thing. So it's been a rough go. Just want to apologize. I am going to start again. Want to say hi? No. She's like, no, Mom, I'm good. Come on, tell me whether or not you're going to charge. Huh?
I think knowing that I was there, like immediately.
Yep, she's just going to lay there and calm herself down and all that good, happy stuff. So, yeah, that's where I've been. I took a couple days to get better on top of cleaning and packing stuff and him moving it. I ended up getting sick as well. So I have not had the best week. So we're going to do a couple sections today, and hopefully I'll be back tomorrow, but we're going to do, ooh, yummy, yummy. Burn bacon is not bad. All right, so we did all the way to minus 97, and now we're on minus 96. We will find out, hopefully, what this means. So that's what I'm just going to do today. I'm just going to do some reading, and then I'm going to shut it off so I can do dinner. While my daughter's cooking, I'm going to eat. So, minus 96, 096, and counting. They called the A's for the physical almost immediately, and about 24 men got up and filed through a door beyond the freebie. The freebie, remember, is a TV. A large sign packed over the door read, "This way." There was an arrow below the legend pointing to the door. The literacy of games applicants was notoriously low. They were taking a new letter every 15 minutes or so. Ben Richards had sat down at about 5, and so he estimated it would be 9:15 before they got to him. He wished he had brought a book. But he supposed things were just as well as they were. Books were regarded as suspicion at best, especially when carried by someone from the south of the canal. Pervert mags were safer. He watched the 6 o'clock newsie restlessly. The fighting in Ecuador was worse. Now, cannibal riots had broken out in India. The Detroit Tigers had taken the Harding Catamounts by a score of 6-2 in an afternoon game. And when the first of the evening's big money games came on at 6:30, he went restlessly to the window and looked out. Now that his mind was made up, the games bored him again. Most of the others, however, were watching the fun guns with a dreadful fascination. Next week, it might be them. Outside, daylight was bleeding slowly toward dusk. The L's were slamming at high speed through the power rings above the second-floor window, their powerful headlights searching the gray air. And on the sidewalks below, crowds of men and women, most of them, of course, technicos or network bureaucrats, were beginning their evening prowl in search of entertainment. A certified pusher was hawking his wares on the corner across the street. A man with a sabled dolly on each arm passed below him. The trio was laughing about something. He had a sudden awful wave of homesickness for Sheila and Kathy. Remember, Sheila's his wife and Kathy's his daughter. And wished he could call them. He didn't think it was allowed. He could still walk out, of course. Several men already had. They walked across the room, grinning obscurely at nothing, to use the door marked to street. Back at the flat, with his daughter glowing daughter glowing fever bright in the other room? No, couldn't. He stood at the window a little while longer, and then went back and sat down. The new game, Dig Your Grave, was beginning. The fellow sitting next to Richard twitched his arm anxiously. Is it true that they wash out over 30% just at the physicals? On the physicals? I don't know, Richard said. Jesus, the fellow said. I got bronchitis. Maybe treadmill to Bukes? Richard could think of nothing to say. The pal's respiration sounded like a faraway truck trying to climb a street hill. I got a family, the man said with soft respiration. Richard looked at the freebie as if it interested him. The fellow was quiet for a long time. When the program changed again at 7:30, Richard heard him asking the man on the other side about the physical. It was full dark outside now. Richard wondered if it was still raining. It seemed like a very long evening. Minus 095 and counting. When the R's went through the door underneath the red arrow and into the examination room, it was just a few minutes after 9:30. A lot of the initial excitement had worn off, and people were either watching the freebie avidly with none of the prior dread or dozing. The man with the nosy chest had a name that began with L and had been called over an hour before. Richards wondered idly if he had been cut. The examination room was long and tiled, lit with fluorescent tubes. It looked like an assembly line with bored doctors standing at various stations along the way. Would any of you like to check out my little girl? Richard thought bitterly. The applicants showed their cards to another camera eye embedded in the wall and were ordered to stop by the row of closed shooks. A doctor in a long white lab coat walked over to them, clipboard tucked under his arm. Yes, I have sometimes mess up reading. Strip, he said. Hang your clothes on the hooks. Remember the number over your hook, and give the number to the orderly at the far end. Don't worry about your valuables. Nobody here wants them. Valuables? That was a hot one, Richard thought. Unbuttoning his shirt, he had an empty wallet with a few pictures of Sheila and Kathy, a receipt for a shoe sole he had replaced at the local cobbler's 6 months ago, a key ring with no keys on it except for the door key, a baby sock that he had not remembered putting in there, and a package of glands he had gotten from the machine. He was wearing tattered skivvies because Sheila was too stubborn to let him go without, but many of the men wore buck under their pants. Soon they all stood stripped and anonymous, penises dangling between their legs like forgotten war clubs. Everyone held their card in one hand. Some shuffled their feet as if the floor were cold, although it was not. The faint, impersonally nostalgic odor of alcohol drifted through. Stand in line, the doctor with the clipboard was instructing. Always show your card, follow instructions. The line moved forward. Richard saw there was a cop with each doctor along the way. He dropped his eyes and waited passively. Card. He gave his card over. The first doctor noted the number, then said, Open your mouth. Richard opened it. His tongue was depressed. The next doctor peered into his pupils with a tiny bright light and then stared in his ears. The next placed a cold circle of a stethoscope on his chest. Cough. Richards coughed. Down the line, a man was being hauled away. He needed the money. They couldn't do it. He'd get his lawyer on them. The doctor moved the stethoscope. Cough. Richards coughed. The doctor turned him around and put the stethoscope on his back. Take a deep breath and hold it. The stethoscope moved. Exhaled. Richards exhaled. Move along. His blood pressure was taken by the grinning doctor with an eye patch. He was given a short arm inspection by a bald medico who had several large brown freckles, like liver spots, on his pate. The doctor placed a cool hand between the sack of his scrotum and his upper thigh. Cough. Richards coughed. Move along. His temperature was taken. He was asked to spit in a cup, halfway down the hall. 2 or 3 men were already finished up, and an orderly with a pasty face and a rabbit tooth was bringing them their clothes in the wire baskets. Half a dozen more had been piled out of line and shown the stairs. Bend over and spread your cheeks. Richards bent and spread. Finger coated with plastic invaded his rectal canal, explored, retreated. Move along. He stepped into a booth with curtains on 3 sides, like the old voting booths. Voting booths had been done away with by computer election 11 years ago, and urinated in a blue beaker. The doctor took it, put it on the wire rack. The next stop, he looked at the eye chart. Read, the doctor said. E, A, L, D, M, F, S, E, M, Z, K, L, A, C, D, U, S, G, A. That's enough. Move along. He entered another pseudo-voting booth and put earphones over his head. He was told to push the white button when he heard something and the red button when he didn't hear it anymore. The sound was very high and faint, like a dog whistle that had been pitched lowered into just audible human range. Richards pushed buttons until he was told to stop. He was weighed. His arches were examined. He stood in front of a fluoroscope and put on an apron. A doctor, chewing gum and singing something tuneless under his breath, took several pictures and noted his card number. Richards came in with a group of about 30. 12 had made it to the far end of the room. Some were dressed and waiting for the elevator. About a dozen more had been hauled out of line. One of them tried to attack the doctor that had cut him, and was followed by the policeman wielding a move along at full charge. The pal fell as if polarized. Richard stood at a low table and was asked if he had some 50 different diseases. Most of them were respiratory in nature. The doctor looked up sharply when Richards said there was a case of influenza in the family. Wife? No, my daughter. Age? A year and a half. Have you been immunized? Don't lie. Don't try to lie. The doctor shouted suddenly, as if Richards had already tried to lie. We'll check your health stats. Immunized July 2023. Boosted September 2023. Lock Health Clinic. Move along. Richard had a sudden urge to reach over the table and pop the maggot's neck. Instead, he moved along. At the last stop, a severe-looking woman doctor with close-cropped hair and an electric juicer plugged into one ear asked him if he was homosexual. No. Have you ever been arrested on a felony charge? No. Do you have any severe phobias? By that I mean, no. You better listen to the definition, she said with a faint touch of condescension. I mean, do I have any unusual or impulsive fears, such as arachnophobia or claustrophobia? I don't. Her lips pressed tightly together, and for a moment she seemed on the verge of a sharp comment. Do you use or have you used any hallucinogenic or addictive drugs? No. Do you have any relatives who have been arrested on charges of crimes against the government or against the network? No. Sign this loyalty oath in this Games Commission release form, Mr. Richards. He scratched a signature. Show the orderly your card and tell him the number. He left her in mid-sentence and gestured to the buck-toothed orderly with his thumb. Number 26, Bugs. The orderly brought his things. Richards dressed slowly and went over to the elevator. His anus felt hot, embarrassed, violated, a little slippery with the lubricant the doctor had used. When they were all bunched together, the elevator door opened. The bulletproof Judas hole was empty this time. The cop was a skinny man with a large wen beside his nose. "Step to the rear," he chanted. "Please step to the rear." As the doors closed, Richards could see the S's coming in at the far end of the hall. The doctor with the clipboard was approaching them, then the doors clicked together, cutting off the view. They rode up to the third floor, and the doors opened on a huge, semi-lit dormitory. Rows and rows of narrow iron and canvas cots seemed to stretch out an infinity. Two cops began to check them out of the elevator, giving them bed numbers. Richards was 940. The cot had one brown blanket and a very flat pillow. Richards lay down on the cot and let his shoes drop to the floor. His feet dangled over the end. There was nothing to be done about it. He crossed his arms under his head and stared at the ceiling. Minus 094 and counting. He was awakened promptly at 6 the following morning with a very loud buzzer. For a moment, he was foggy, disoriented, wondering if Sheila had brought an alarm clock or what. Then it came to him, and he sat up. We got one more section after this, because I'm going to just do 4 sections. They were led by groups of 50 into a large industrial bathroom where they showed their cards to a camera guarded by a policeman. Richards went to a blue-tiled booth that contained a mirror, a basin, a shower, a toilet. On the shelf above the basin was a row of toothbrushes wrapped in cellophane, an electric razor, a bar of soap, and a half-used tube of toothpaste. A sign tucked into the corner of the mirror read, "Respect this property." Beneath it, someone had scrawled, "I only respect my ass." Richards showered, dried with a towel that topped a pile on the toilet tank, shaved and brushed. They were let into a cafeteria where they showed their ID cards again. Richards took the tray, pushed it down a stainless steel ledge. He was given a box of cornflakes, a greasy dish of home fries, a scoop of scrambled eggs, a piece of toast as cold and hard as a marble gravestone, a half pint of milk, a cup of muddy coffee, no cream, an envelope of sugar, an envelope of salts, and a pat of fake butter on a tiny square of oily paper. I know those. I've seen those. Yeah. He wolfed the meal. They all did. For Richards, it was the first real food, other than greasy pizza wedges and government pill commodities, that he had eaten in God knew how long. Yet it was oddly bland, as if some vampire chef in the kitchen had sucked all the taste out of it and left only brute nutrients. What are they eating this morning? Kelp pills. Fake milk for the baby. A sudden feeling of depression swelled over him. Christ, when would they start seeing money? Tomorrow? Today? Next week? Or maybe that was just a gimmick too. A flashy come on. Maybe there wasn't even any rainbow, let alone a pot of gold. He had started to... Oh my good gracious Lord. My brain is not with it. I do apologize. He sat staring at his empty plate until the 7 o'clock buzzer went and they were moved on to the elevators. Minus 093 and counting. On the 4th floor, Richard's group of 50 was herded first into a large, furnitureless room ringed with what looked like letter slots. They showed their cards again, and the elevator doors whooshed closed behind them. A gaunt man with receding hair, with the game's emblem, the silhouette of human head, superimposed over a torch, on his lab coat, came into the room. Please undress and remove all valuables from your clothes, he said. Then drop your clothes into one of the incinerator slots. You'll be issued games coveralls. He smiled magnanimously. You may keep the coveralls, no matter what your personal game's resolution may be. There was some grumbling, but everyone complied. Hurry, please, the gaunt man said. He clapped his hands together twice. like a first-grade teacher signaling the end of playtime. We have lots ahead of us. Are you going to be a contestant too? Richard asked. The gaunt man favored him with a puzzling expression. Somebody in the back snickered. Never mind, Richard said, and stepped out of his trousers. He removed his unvaluable valuables and dumped his shirt, pants, and skivvies into the letter slot. There was a brief, hungry flash of flame from somewhere far below. The door at the other end opened. There was always a door at the other end. They were like rats in a huge, upward, pending maze. Can you imagine? An American maze, Richard reflected. The men trundled in large baskets on wheels, labeled small, medium, large, and extra large, or S, M, L, and XL. Richard selected XL for its length and expected it to hang baggily on his frame, but it fit quite well. The material was soft, clingy, almost like silk, but tougher than silk. A single nylon zipper ran up the front. They were all dark blue, and they all had the game's emblem on the right breast pocket. When the entire group was wearing them, Ben Richards felt as if he had lost his face. This way, please, the gaunt man said, and ushered them into another waiting room. The inevitable freebie blared and cackled. You'll be called in groups of 10. The door beyond the freebie was topped by another sign reading this way, complete with arrow. They sat down. After a while, Richards got up and went to the window and looked out. They were higher up, but it was still raining. The streets were slick and black and wet. He wondered what Sheila was doing. You know what? Let's do another couple sections. We're only at 20 minutes. Why not? Give me 1 second. I need to write something. Yeah, we're just kind of going to chill. Dinner's not quite done yet, so we're going to wait. I'll read another section and then we'll see how dinner is. See if I can get this over. Okay. Okay. Now, back to what I was reading. I don't want to fix that. Ah. It is. Okay. Minus T. Okay, now. Oh, I apologize if you guys hear the background. Minus 092 and counting. He went through the door, one of the group of 10 now, at 10:15. They went through single file. Their cards were scanned. Again. If you haven't noticed, the scanning is every time they do something. You know, computer's just being a butt. There were 10 three-sided booths, but these were more substantial. The sides were constructed of drilled soundproof cork paneling. The overhead lighting was soft and indirect. Music, M-U-Z-A-K, that is the funniest thing, was emanating from the hidden speakers. There was a plush carpet on the floor. Richard's feet felt startled by something that wasn't cement. The gaunt man had said something to him. Richard blinked. Huh? Booth 6, the gaunt man said reprovingly. Oh. He went to booth 6. There was a table inside, and a large wall clock mounted at eye level beyond it. On the table was a sharpened G-A/IBM pencil, and a pile of unlined paper. Cheap grade, Richards noted. Sounds like sketch paper, maybe? Standing beside all this was dazzling computer-aged priestess, a tall Juness blonde wearing iridescent short shorts, which cleanly outlined the delta-shaped rise of her udenda. Okay, I have to know what this means. pudenda. Yeah. What is a pudenda? Is that what I think it is? Oh, it is exactly what we think. Yeah. Not the back, but the front. We'll leave it at that. For anybody that's watching and doesn't need to know. Standing beside all this, let's see. We already got the pudenda. Rough nipples poked perkily through a silk fishnet blouselet. What is she, half naked? Sit down, please, she said. I am Rinda Ward, your tester. She held out her hand. Startled, Richards took it. Benjamin Richards. May I call you Ben? The smile was seductive but impersonal. He felt exactly the token of rise of desire he was supposed to feel for this well-stacked female, with her well-fed body on display. It angered him. He wondered if she got her kicks this way, showing it off to the poor slobs on their way to the meat grinder. Sure, he said. Nice tits. Thank you, she said, unruffled. He was seated now, looking up while she looked down, and it added an even more embarrassing angle to the picture. This test today is your mental facilities, what your physical yesterday was to your body. It will be a fairly long test, and your luncheon will be around 3 this afternoon, assuming you pass. She smiled, winked on and off. The first section is verbal. You have 1 hour from the time I give you the test booklet. You may ask questions during the examination, and I will answer them if I am allowed to do so. I will not give you any answers to the test questions, however. Do you understand? Yes. She handed him the booklet. There was a large red hand printed on the cover, palm outward. In large red letters beneath, it said, Stop. These sound like the tests we took in school. Beneath this, do not turn on the first page until your tester instructs you to proceed. Heavy, Richards remarked. Pardon me? The perfectly sculpted eyebrows went up a notch. Up nothing. You will find an answer sheet when you open your booklet, she recited. Please make your marks heavy and black. If you wish to change your answer, please erase completely. If you do not know an answer, do not guess. Do you understand? Yes. Then please turn to page 1 and begin. When I say stop, please put your pencil down. You may begin. He didn't begin. He eyed her body slowly, incessantly. After a moment, she flushed. Your hour has begun, Ben. You had better. Why? He asked. Does everybody assume that when they are dealing with someone from south of the canal, they are dealing with a horny mental incompetent? She was completely flustered now. I never. No, you never, he smiled and picked up his pencil. My Christ, you people are dumb. He bent to the test while she was still trying to find an answer or even a reason for his attack. She probably really didn't understand. The first section required him to mark the letter of the correct fill-in-the-blank answer. Number 1. 1 blank does not make a summer. 1 thought, 1 beer, 1 swallow, 1 crime. None of these. A, B, C, D, and E. He filled in his answer sheet rapidly, rarely stopped to deliberate or consider an answer twice. Fill-ins were followed by vocabulary and then word constraints. When he finished, the hour allotted still had 15 minutes to run. She made him keep his exam. Legally, he couldn't give it to her until the hour was up. So Richards leaned back and wordlessly ogled her nearly naked body. Chat, it's nearby. The silence grew thick and oppressive, charged. He could see her wishing for an overcoat, and it pleased him. When the time was up, she gave him a second exam. On the first page, there was a drawing of a gasoline carburetor. Below, you would put this in a lawnmower, freebie, an electric hammock, automobile, none of these. Even I know the answer. The third exam was a math diagnostic. He was not so good with figures, and he began to sweat lightly as he saw the clock getting away from him. In the end, it was nearly a dead heat. He didn't get a chance to finish the last question. Brenda Ward smiled a trifle too widely as she pulled the test and answer sheet away from him. Not so fast on that one, Ben. But they'll all be right, he said, and smiled back at her. He leaned forward and swatted her lightly on the rump. Take a shower, kid. You did good. She blushed furiously. I could have you disqualified. Look, hello. I skipped a page, sorry. Bullshit. You could get yourself fired, that's all. Get out. Get back in line, she was snarling, suddenly, near tears. He felt something almost like compassion and choked it back. You have a nice night tonight, he said. You go out, have a nice 6-course meal with whoever you're sleeping with this week, and think about my kid dying of flu in that shitty 3-room development apartment. He left her staring after him, white-faced. His group of 10 had been cut to 6, and they trooped into the next room. It was 1:30. Hey, Belle, how much do you have left? One section?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to read the next section then. Minus 091 and counting. The doctor sitting on the other side of the table in a small booth wore glasses with tiny, thick lenses. He had a kind of nasty, pleased grin that reminded Richards of a half-wit he had known as a boy. The kid had enjoyed crouching under the high school bleachers and looking up girls' skirts when he flogged his dog. While he flogged his dog. Oh, good Lord, I've never heard of it called that. Richards began to grin. Something pleasant, the doctor asked, flipping up the first ink blot. The nasty grin widened a tiny bit. Yes, you remind me of someone I used to know. Oh? Who? Never mind. Very well. What do you see here? Richards looked at it. An inflated blood pressure cuff had been cinched to his right arm. Blah, 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 blah. A number of electrodes had been pasted to his head, and wires from both of his head and arm were jacked into a console behind the doctor. Squiggly lines moved across the face of the computer console. 2 Negro women kissing. He flipped to another one. This? A sports car. Looks like a Jag. Do you like gas cars? Richard shrugged. I had a model collection when I was a kid. The doctor made a note and flipped up another card. Sick people. She's lying on her side. The shadows on her face look like prison bars. And the last one? Richard burst out laughing. Looks like a pile of shit. He thought of the doctor, complete with his white coat, running around under the bleachers, looking up girls' skirts, jacking off, and he began to laugh again. The doctor sat smiling with his nasty smile, making the vision more real, thus funnier. At last his giggles tapered off to a snort or two. Richards hiccuped once and was still. I don't suppose you'd care to tell me? No, Richard said. I wouldn't. Well, proceed then. Word association. He didn't bother to explain it. Richard supposed word was getting around. That was good. It would save time. Ready? Yes. The doctor produced a stopwatch from his inside pocket, clicked the business end of a ballpoint pen, and considered a list in front of him. Doctor, Negro. Actually, it's Dr. Nigger, Richards responded. Penis, cock, red, black, silver, dagger, rifle, murder. Win, money, sex, tests, strike, out. The list continued. They went through over 50 words before the doctor clicked the stem of the stopwatch down and dropped the pen. For anybody wondering, this book was written a while ago. I do believe it was 1970s. I'll have to look. So words like what I'm reading are not meant to offend. 1982, I take that back. So any words that are derogatory are not meant toward anybody. They're simply part of the book, just so everybody knows. Good, he said. He folded his hands and looked at Richard seriously. I have a final question, Ben. I won't say that I'll know a lie when I hear it, but the machine you're hooked up to will give a very strong indication one way or the other. Have you decided to try the qualification status of the games out of any suicidal motivation? No. What is your reason? My little girl's sick. She needs a doctor, medicine, hospital care. The ballpoint pen scratched. Anything else? Richards was on the verge of saying no, it was none of their business, and then decided he would give it all. Perhaps because the doctor looked like that nearly forgotten dirty boy of his youth. Maybe only because it needed to be said once, to make it coalesce and take concrete shape, as things do when a man forces himself to translate unformed emotional reactions into spoken words. I haven't had work in a long time. I want to work again, even if it's only being the sucker man in a loaded game. I want to work and support my family. I have pride. Do you have pride, doctor? It goes before a fall, the doctor said. He clicked the tip of the ballpoint pen in. If you have nothing to add, Mr. Richards, he stood up. That, and the switch back to his surname, suggested that the interview was over, whether Richards had any more to say or not. No. The door is down the hall to your right. Good luck, sir, Richards said. Or good luck. Sure, Richard said. I'm telling you, I am still sick because I cannot read properly. I can't talk properly. I can't do anything properly. My dog ate. Yeah, she's mine for the moment. Sleeping now. But she ate the bandage that was on the cat. He somehow lost a nail, so it's all ripped up now. But it's going in her box. So anyway, I just wanted to at least catch up a little bit on reading, and hopefully tomorrow I can get back here. I just figured I'd do a little bit of a live and give you guys a little read. I may or may not read some more, but anywho, I just want to say have a good night. Thank you for watching, and y'all have a